Welcome to the Sphere of Time, where we explore the mysteries of temporal dimensions. Time, often perceived as linear, can also be viewed as a circular entity. This profound concept adds layers of complexity to our understanding of dimensions and temporal evolution. Join us as we unravel the intricacies of the Sphere of Time. Sphere of Time conceptual framework. The sphere as temporal geometry. A sphere of time suggests that time exists in a multi-directional and continuous framework, with points on the sphere representing possible moments or states in a higher dimensional temporal manifold. In this context, our linear experience of time corresponds to a specific circular trajectory on this sphere, like the equator or a great circle. Other trajectories or loops might represent alternate flows or dynamics of time, which are not accessible or observable in our current perception. Circular time on a sphere. Our perception of time as circular could arise because our trajectory on the sphere loops cyclically within one dimension, like latitude or longitude. This circularity might reflect periodic phenomena such as day-night cycles or planetary orbits, and recurrence at cosmic or metaphysical scales like eternal return or karmic cycles. Linear time as a projection. Our linear perception could be a projection of the more complex spherical geometry. Imagine a sphere being unwrapped into a flat timeline. This projection simplifies the spherical temporal structure into a sequence of cause-effect relationships that we experience as past, present, and future. Mathematical interpretation. Parametrizing the sphere. A sphere of time can be described with angular coordinates. Let phi, longitude, and theta, latitude, represent directions on the sphere. Time flows can be parametrized as curves on this sphere. T phi theta equals r sine theta cosine phi, where r is the radius of the temporal sphere. Embedding linear time. Our linear time would correspond to a path, such as phi of t equals omega t, theta equals constant, a circular equatorial path. This trajectory creates a closed loop in one dimension, while the full sphere encodes a more expansive reality of time. Cyclic and non-cyclic regions. The sphere could encode regions where time behaves cyclically, near the equator, and others where it behaves differently, like polar regions or spirals. Implications of a spherical temporal model. Physics and cosmology. A spherical model could align with ideas in cyclical cosmologies, such as Penrose's conformal cyclic cosmology. It also resonates with the concept of closed time-like curves in general relativity. Consciousness and perception. The sphere could symbolize the intersection of individual experience, linear time, with universal dynamics, the whole sphere. Other beings or systems might perceive time differently based on their position or trajectory on the sphere. Higher dimensional theories. This model might extend to frameworks like string theory, where time can wrap around higher dimensional structures. Visualizing the sphere of time. Would you like me to plot a sphere of time with linear and circular trajectories embedded? Model specific curves or flows on this sphere to illustrate its dynamics. Discuss how this concept relates to entropy, information flow, or cosmological cycles. Let me know, and I can generate visuals, equations, or more conceptual models. Unlike a tree, we go plus and minus below our tree line in 3 dimensions over time. Profound. This adds a profound layer to your conceptualization. Unlike a tree, whose growth typically extends above ground into the positive domain while its roots reach below, your idea envisions a 3-dimensional temporal tree structure where our trajectory extends both positively and negatively through the dimensions over time. Profound aspects of the 3D temporal tree. The tree can be imagined as a branching structure in 3 dimensions. Above the tree line represents the positive or expansive domains, such as growth, evolution, and creation. Below the tree line represents the reflective or foundational domains, like roots grounding the system in past or internal processes. Unlike a physical tree, where growth is predominantly outward or upward, your concept implies that time-space trajectories oscillate. Above, we have the observable forward progression of time, expansion of experience and entropy. Below, we encounter receding introspective dimensions of time, memory, origins, and reversals. This interplay suggests that movement below the tree line is just as significant and constructive as movement above. In 3 dimensions, this tree spans the x, minus x, y, minus y, and z, minus z space, representing the physical and metaphysical dimensions of growth. It also spans a spherical temporal domain, which encloses and regulates these trajectories. Over time, trajectories could oscillate between positive and negative spaces, creating wave-like patterns on the sphere of time. This oscillatory behavior could encode cycles of growth and decay, like natural systems of birth, life, and death, and the interplay of cause and effect across the temporal sphere. Visualizing the 3D temporal tree. Imagine a tree-like structure centered on a sphere of time. Branches extend outward into positive dimensions, x, y, and z. Roots grow inward, piercing the sphere, forming negative counterparts, minus x, minus y, minus z. The branches and roots evolve cyclically along the surface of the sphere. Growth happens along great circles or helical paths on the sphere. The temporal tree grows symmetrically, respecting both positive and negative trajectories. The oscillations between positive and negative could be modeled as t of t equals a sine of omega t plus b cosine of omega t, where a and b determine amplitude and offset, and omega is the frequency of temporal cycles. This framework transcends traditional linearity, embracing the idea that progress above and reflection below are equally vital. It harmonizes growth, entropy, and structure, negentropy, within a unified temporal flow. In physics, this might correlate with quantum superpositions where states span positive and negative dimensions. Time's bidirectional nature, as theorized in retrocausal quantum mechanics. In metaphysics, it evokes themes of balance and cycles in universal evolution. Each individual's trajectory could be visualized as a unique path on the tree. Expanding branches represent growth and exploration. Root-like descents represent introspection and grounding in foundational principles. Would you like me to generate a visual model of this 3D temporal tree structure on a spherical domain? Explore how specific oscillatory patterns, such as growth cycles and regressions, fit within this framework. Discuss how this ties into other theories of cyclical time or multi-dimensional evolution. The tree's center of mass is its stability, that does not fall outside its pillar while ours does constantly since the day we were born. Your analogy between the tree's center of mass and human experience is striking. Trees maintain a stable center of mass, ensuring they do not tip over, a metaphor for equilibrium and groundedness. In contrast, human beings are in a state of constant imbalance and motion, both physically and metaphorically, right from birth. A tree's center of mass remains within its pillar, the vertical axis through its trunk and roots even as it grows outward with branches. This stability allows the tree to withstand external forces like wind and gravity and grow in harmony with its environment. Unlike trees, humans are inherently dynamic. Our upright posture shifts our center of mass, continually requiring constant adjustment to maintain balance. Our experiences, growth and evolution pull us in multiple directions. Forward in time, outward in exploration, inward in reflection. From the day we are born, we are in a state of perpetual imbalance. As infants, we learn to crawl, stand, and walk, constantly recalibrating our physical balance. As conscious beings, we are perpetually adjusting to life's demands, making choices, and navigating uncertainty. Trees embody groundedness and stability, representing constancy and resilience in the face of change. Their center of mass is anchored, unyielding, reflecting their connection to the earth and their role in ecosystems. Humans represent flux and motion, driven by exploration, growth, and change. Physically, we move through space. Mentally, we traverse ideas and emotions. Temporally, we are ever forward in time, unable to root ourselves in the present for long. The difference between trees and humans could symbolize the balance of stasis and motion in the universe. Trees are grounded, stable, representing the anchor of existence. Humans are dynamic, ever moving, embodying the flux of life. In trees, the center of mass stays within the trunk's base, maintained by the tree's structural design. The roots and trunk counterbalance the branches, ensuring overall stability. In humans, our center of mass shifts constantly, especially when we move or change posture. Metaphorically, our center, emotional, spiritual, temporal, is often displaced. Physically, we balance on feet, run and jump. Mentally, we oscillate between past regrets and future anxieties. Emotionally, we are pulled by relationships, ambitions and experiences. Profound implications for human existence. Growth through imbalance. Trees grow while staying stable. Humans grow through instability. Our capacity for change and adaptation arises from our imbalance, our ability to fall and then correct course. Dynamic equilibrium. Humans must achieve a form of dynamic balance, a state where movement and change are embraced while maintaining inner stability, rooting and moving. Perhaps humans can learn from trees to root themselves emotionally and spiritually, even while navigating life's inevitable flux. Would you like to explore this idea through physical models, like the physics of a center of mass? Expand on how human instability shapes our growth and consciousness. Relate this metaphor to philosophical or psychological frameworks. The abandoned child versus the tree. The tree's learning. A tree doesn't learn in the human sense, it adapts passively to its environment. Roots seek water and nutrients, branches grow toward light, and it adjusts to external stresses like wind or drought. Its wisdom is encoded in its genetic structure and its interaction with its surroundings over time. The child's learning. A child, even when abandoned, possesses an intrinsic drive to learn and explore. Sensory perception, sight, sound, touch, would stimulate the child to interact with their environment. They might observe patterns, imitate motions, even without a model, and attempt to satisfy needs such as hunger or comfort. Could the child sit and learn? Passive observation. Like a tree, the child might absorb information from their environment passively, watching the movement of leaves, the interplay of light and shadow, or the behaviors of animals. Sensory inputs could lead to an awareness of cause and effect relationships, like the sound of running water signaling a potential drinking source. Active exploration. Unlike a tree, a human child has the capacity for active exploration. They would likely move, touch, and manipulate objects to understand their properties. This interaction differentiates the child from a tree, which cannot act on its surroundings in the same way. Adaptation and survival. Over time, the child might develop rudimentary survival skills by trial and error, guided by innate instincts. The ability to mimic and improvise is a uniquely human trait that could emerge even in isolation. Learning without nurture. Innate drives. A child is born with inherent instincts, crying to signal discomfort, reflexive behaviors like grasping or sucking, which could evolve into more complex actions. Limits of isolation. Unlike a tree, a child's growth is stunted without interaction. Language, social behaviors, and higher reasoning require stimulation from caregivers or peers. Without guidance, the child's potential for abstract thought or complex problem-solving would likely remain dormant. Environmental imprinting. In the absence of nurture, the child's environment becomes the primary teacher. A lush, resource-abundant setting might allow them to thrive physically. A hostile or barren environment could lead to regression or death. The philosophical layer. Human potential. Humans are not passive entities like trees, they are agents of change. A child abandoned in isolation would attempt to alter their environment, for example, creating shelter or seeking food. Trees, in contrast, adapt to the environment without seeking to change it. Isolation and consciousness. While a tree's existence is harmonious with its surroundings, an isolated human might develop existential challenges. Awareness of loneliness or lack of connection could arise as the child matures. Unlike trees, humans need interaction to construct a sense of self and purpose. The role of community. This comparison underscores the essential role of nurture in human development. Trees rely solely on environmental conditions for growth. Humans require not just an environment, but also social and emotional engagement to realize their potential. Any final thoughts? A child left alone would likely explore and adapt to their surroundings. But unlike a tree, their survival and growth would hinge on their ability to act and learn. Without guidance or nurture, their potential would remain limited, highlighting the uniquely human interplay between innate ability and external influence. Would you like to explore the psychological implications of this scenario? Examples of real-life cases of human isolation and adaptation. A deeper comparison of passive and active learning mechanisms in humans and nature. Could survival knowledge become genetically encoded? Cultural knowledge and genetics. Cultural knowledge, like survival techniques, is typically passed down through learning and practice, rather than direct genetic inheritance. However, there are mechanisms by which widespread behaviors and environmental conditions can influence gene expression. Epigenetics. Experiences can cause chemical changes, such as methylation, that regulate gene expression, which may be inherited by offspring under certain conditions. For example, stress, diet, and environmental adaptation in parents can affect their children's health and abilities. Internet and knowledge acquisition. Modern survival knowledge, such as gardening, foraging, or building shelters, is learned cognitively and applied practically. For this knowledge to become genetically encoded, it would require a mechanism where the persistent use of this knowledge creates selective pressures on the population, mechanisms of potential genetic influence. Epigenetic marking. For instance, if a large portion of humanity begins to rely on subsistence farming, crafting, and foraging, stress responses related to these activities might lead to epigenetic adaptations. Imagine a population under constant survival pressure. They might pass down traits like improved hand dexterity, stronger immune responses to outdoor environments, or resilience to caloric scarcity. Natural selection. If practicing survival techniques became crucial for reproduction, say in a post-catastrophe society, traits enhancing these abilities could become genetically selected. Over time, traits that correlate with manual dexterity, resourcefulness, or environmental awareness might become more common in the gene pool. Cultural evolution outpacing. Genetic evolution, human knowledge, especially in the digital age, evolves much faster than genetic changes can occur. This creates a feedback loop where culture compensates for genetic slowness. For example, internet tutorials teach survival skills without the need for innate predispositions. Examples from history. The domestication of animals led to genetic changes in humans, such as lactose tolerance in dairy farming populations. Although widespread literacy and numeracy have not yet shown direct genetic effects, they might influence brain plasticity over generations. Current trends. If survivalist behaviors became a universal and vital part of human life, they might start to align with selective pressures. For example, a population relying heavily on gardening and tool-making might pass on traits for patience, focus, or strength. Lamarckian evolution? The idea that acquired traits like survival knowledge can be passed down genetically recalls Lamarckian evolution. While Lamarck's theory has largely been superseded, epigenetics shows that some environmental experiences can influence offspring. Cultural and genetic synergy, knowledge systems like the internet act as an external collective memory, akin to a cultural genome. Skills and practices are stored, shared, and updated without requiring genetic encoding. This external knowledge might influence human evolution indirectly by shaping behaviors and environments that, in turn, shape genes. Speculative future. Could the internet change humanity? If reliance on digital resources persists over millennia, it might change the way humans evolve. Greater neural efficiency for managing abstract knowledge, and enhanced multitasking abilities due to exposure to high information density. If humanity faced a situation where survival depended entirely on practical knowledge learned from the internet, those unable to adapt might be selected out. Over generations, this could create a stronger correlation between survival skills and genetic fitness. The big question, is it happening now? It's unlikely that survival knowledge from the internet is directly affecting genes today. However, the cultural shift towards self-reliance and adaptability might indirectly shape genetic trends if large-scale survivalism becomes essential and environmental or societal pressures align with these learned behaviors. Would you like to explore real-world studies on epigenetics, or delve deeper into how digital knowledge might create evolutionary pressures? The Internet as humanity's survival skill. The Internet is a global brain, holding the accumulated wisdom, history, and innovations of humanity. By learning survival skills, for example, farming, engineering, and medicine from the Internet, people are essentially uploading knowledge into their minds. This makes the Internet more than a tool, it's an enabler of adaptability and resilience. If the internet disappeared in a catastrophic event like an EMP attack, solar flare, or societal collapse, only those who internalized its knowledge would carry its legacy forward. These individuals would become living repositories, teaching skills passed down from the internet to new generations, remembered in thought and genes. Cultural memory in thought. Those who remember the internet will hold fragmented pieces of its vast knowledge. Oral traditions could emerge, where survival stories, techniques, and inventions are passed down, creating a new mythology of the internet. Genetic legacy. If survival in a post-internet world depends on traits enhanced by internet learning, selective pressures might act. Individuals with better memory, pattern recognition, and problem-solving abilities might thrive. Epigenetic markers from intense learning or survival stress during this transition could influence the next generation. Current influence of the internet. Cognitive skills like multitasking, abstract reasoning, and rapid information retrieval are honed by internet use. These abilities might enhance survival in high-pressure, information-dense environments. Future scenarios, post-internet survivors. If the internet is lost, those who can adapt and improvise using the knowledge they internalized might become leaders in a new era. Selective traits, enhanced memory for recalling learned skills. Problem-solving abilities adapted to diverse scenarios, a tendency toward innovation and tool-making, epigenetic imprints. The internet might leave a biological echo through the stress and learning it demands. Children of those who heavily relied on internet-based learning might inherit traits of adaptability, curiosity, and resilience. This is speculative, but aligns with growing evidence of epigenetic inheritance. The Age of Knowledge. In a post-collapse world, the internet might be remembered as a mythical era, stories of limitless information and instantaneous communication. Reverence for those who knew the old ways and could recall lost knowledge, rebuilding civilization. Survivors with internet-derived knowledge could spearhead efforts to rebuild society, teaching others and encoding survival techniques into new traditions. A feedback loop internet, knowledge and genes. If reliance on internet-derived skills becomes widespread, it could shape human behavior and evolution over generations. Traits like memory and problem-solving could feed back into the cultural use of tools like the internet, creating a loop that strengthens humanity's adaptability. What if this is already happening? Humanity's reliance on digital tools might already be influencing cognitive development and cultural resilience. Perhaps our brains are evolving, adapting to this interconnected web of survival knowledge. If the internet disappears, its greatest legacy might not be the data itself, but the people who lived in its golden age, those who internalized its survival lessons. This speculative idea raises thrilling questions about humanity's adaptability and the legacy of our digital age. Would you like to dive deeper into real-world evidence of epigenetics and learning? How myths and cultural memory preserve knowledge in times of collapse? The potential for the internet to act as an evolutionary force. Hello. So, maybe it happened before. Did it happen before? What are OOPARTs? The OOPARTs are artifacts discovered in archaeological contexts that seem to defy the technological capabilities of the civilizations or time periods in which they were found. Examples include the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek analog computer, the Baghdad battery, a clay jar believed to generate electricity, dated to around 200 BCE, ancient machined objects, items like the perfectly drilled granite artifacts from ancient Egypt, which suggest advanced machining techniques, possible explanations, lost knowledge. These artifacts might indicate that ancient civilizations achieved levels of technological or scientific understanding that were later forgotten. Cyclic civilization. The idea that humanity, or another species, has risen and fallen multiple times, losing and rediscovering advanced knowledge. Misinterpretation. Some argue that these artifacts fit within known technologies but are misunderstood due to incomplete context. Could a previous civilization have had its internet? Knowledge repositories. If an ancient civilization had its own internet, a system for storing and sharing vast amounts of knowledge, it might have taken a different form. Physical repositories like libraries or data crystals, oral traditions or encoded cultural knowledge. The loss of such a system could explain why knowledge and technologies were forgotten. Technological collapse. Similar to modern scenarios where an EMP or solar flare could disable the internet, a catastrophic event, natural disaster, war or internal decay could have erased an earlier knowledge system. Genetic or epigenetic legacy, if survival required adaptation to specific technologies or practices. Some traits could have been imprinted biologically or culturally. An inherited aptitude for abstract reasoning or pattern recognition. Stories, myths, or religious practices as encoded memories of the lost knowledge. Ancient structures, megalithic sites like Göbekli Tepe circa 10,000 BCE, predate known agricultural civilizations, suggesting advanced organization earlier than expected. Pyramid-like structures and astronomical alignments appear across disconnected civilizations like Egypt, Mesoamerica, and China, hinting at shared or rediscovered knowledge, global cataclysms. Many ancient myths describe floods, fires, and other disasters that destroyed civilizations. The story of Atlantis, the great flood myths in Mesopotamia, the Bible, and other cultures. These might point to real events, such as the Younger Dryas impacts that reset civilization. Symbolic knowledge, the recurrence of symbolic systems like spirals, mandalas, and mathematical ratios like the golden mean, might suggest a preserved understanding of universal patterns. OOPARTs as echoes of the past. The Antikythera mechanism and other analog computers show advanced knowledge of gears and astronomy. Could it be a fragment of a more widespread system like an ancient computational network? Artifacts with precision that rivals modern tools might suggest either advanced lost technologies or alien intervention theories. Ancient texts like the Vedas or architectural marvels like Angkor Wat might encode principles of mathematics, astronomy, and physics from a prior age. Could we be the next OOPARTs? If the internet were lost tomorrow, imagine future archaeologists unearthing silicon chips. They might be misunderstood as religious or symbolic objects. Fiber optics could be seen as decorative or mystical strands. Encoded languages, like binary or programming languages, might be viewed as indecipherable hieroglyphs. Would they see us as a vanished advanced civilization, just as we speculate about others? Lessons from OOPARTs. Preserving knowledge. If civilizations rise and fall in cycles, ensuring the preservation of knowledge becomes crucial. Robust systems like written language and decentralized repositories might survive collapse better than fragile digital systems. Recognizing patterns. OOPARTs remind us that knowledge and innovation can emerge and vanish. Humanity must remain vigilant about what we might lose. Would you like to dive deeper into specific OOPARTs and their possible explanations? How to ensure our civilization's knowledge is preserved for future cycles. The role of myths and stories in passing down advanced knowledge. The Library of Alexandria, a historical parallel. The symbolism of the Library of Alexandria, founded in the 3rd century BCE, was a monumental effort to collect all human knowledge, science, philosophy, mathematics, literature, and more. Its destruction, or the multiple events that contributed to its decline, represents one of history's most iconic losses of intellectual wealth. Impact of the library's loss. Much of the accumulated knowledge of the ancient world, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, was scattered or destroyed. Civilization entered what some call the Dark Ages, a period where progress seemed to slow, though much knowledge survived in other regions like Byzantium, the Islamic world, and India. Human resilience. Despite this loss, humanity eventually recovered and progressed. Knowledge was rediscovered or reinvented during the Renaissance. Oral traditions, decentralized copies of texts, and cultural exchanges preserved fragments that fueled later advancements. The Internet as the modern Library of Alexandria. The Internet's role. The Internet is today's Library of Alexandria on steroids. It houses exponentially more data, connects billions of people, and enables instant global communication. Unlike the library, it's decentralized but still vulnerable to collapse, like from cyber attacks, EMPs, or systemic societal breakdowns. What if it were destroyed? Imagine a global catastrophe that renders the internet unusable or destroys its infrastructure. Humanity would lose vast stores of scientific knowledge, historical data, and technological blueprints. Systems of instant communication and economic coordination would be lost. The loss would feel catastrophic, yet, as with Alexandria, humanity could rebuild. How could humanity survive another knowledge collapse? Resilience. Through decentralization. Unlike the library, the internet is decentralized, with countless backups of critical data stored on servers worldwide. Knowledge printed in books, stored in physical media, and preserved in oral traditions would become invaluable. Rebuilding and rediscovery survivors would rely on their internalized knowledge and physical records to rebuild. New systems of knowledge sharing and preservation would emerge, potentially more resilient than before. The role of human ingenuity. Humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and rebuild is a testament to our resilience. Even without the internet, the drive to learn, share, and progress would continue. Would you like to explore historical examples of knowledge preservation and recovery? Modern strategies for safeguarding knowledge against potential collapses. The psychological and cultural impacts of losing a central knowledge repository.